Do you know exactly what you were looking for? What attracted you to other countries?
As a gay man, I just didn't want to, have this. I wanted to have some more freedom, and I wanted people in a country or city where I live to be more open to different kinds of people. At the time, I just felt like I was trapped in a place where like I didn't really feel I belonged. Through the years here, I feel like I visited most of the towns here, but Amsterdam definitely isn't a representation of the country, I wouldn't say.
To what degree do you feel like you've become Dutch?
Dutch people can be super direct. Like there's no sugarcoating stuff. So this I feel that I also acquired through the years here.
And I've heard that so many times, that Dutch people are super direct and like to the point and no sugarcoating and all of the stuff that you're saying. What could you do that would offend a Dutch person? How many languages do you speak?
Well, I speak Polish. That's my native language, and that's I always thought that that's the language I speak the best. But now, since I moved abroad, not so much anymore. Also, my mom often tells me that I need to read in Polish because I forget words. I also speak English fluently. I speak a bit of German. I used to speak much more because I always wanted to move to Germany. Didn't happen. And I speak just a tiny little bit of Dutch. I mean, like I understand much more after 6 years here, but yeah, I would say I speak 2.5 languages. So yeah,
2.5.
yeah.
I mean, what is the most common language for people to learn growing up in Poland, like as a foreign language?
German or English, mostly. Those are like I grew up with German classes since like literally the get-go. I would say the day one, and only when I was in high school I had both German and English, but those are the most common languages, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because there are quite a few Polish people living in Germany, right?
yeah, there's a big community in Germany, and they are also our neighbor, so I guess it's uh, yeah, quite natural. Like my parents' generation, they had only Russian in school, so it has changed. Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of a new development in this generation or whatever to speak German.
I mean, it was more, I think, established when we gained independence again after the communism. So I guess this was when things shifted a bit.
Mm-hmm. Focusing on the neighbors to the west instead of to
pretty
the
much,
east, kind of.
pretty much. Yeah. Well, when we became independent again, it was always like we were always putting America, like US, as our example, and also we were always like the government was always saying like we're going to be as good as Germany. Did it happen? I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, Germany has like one of the biggest economies in all of Europe, right?
Yeah.
It is kind of a shining star, I guess. A good example of how an economy can be run. I did an exchange in Germany for a month when I was in university, and that was my only experience in Europe at all, actually. And so that's kind of my only reference point. But yeah, I thought it was fun. And I did see and meet some Polish people when I was there. One of my friends who lives in Germany, his mom is from Poland. And I stayed with them for a few days and hung out with them. And she spoke German super, super well. And it was definitely impressive. Well, what part of Poland are you from?
From south to west. I'm from a smaller town, so most likely you won't know it. Like whenever people ask me this question, they are like, are you from Warsaw? And I always say no, and then the next town they know it's Krakow, which I'm also not from. So yeah, it's like close to Germany and also close to Czech Republic. It's a little. Well, it's not that little. We have like 100K people living there almost. The town is called Legnica.
Legnica.
Legnica. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Being from Canada as well, people only know 2 cities. Like if you're not from Toronto or Vancouver, people don't know where you're from here.
I mean,
I make it up.
To be honest with you, that's true. I also know there's a town called, what was it, Edmonton?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I only know it. I only know it because I know a few Polish people who emigrated there long time ago. So yeah, that's why I know this place exists. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really good. Edmonton is a capital city of the province Alberta, which is where I'm
Yeah.
from. Actually, not Edmonton, but
Oh,
I'm from
really?
Calgary, which is another like major city in the same province. And so, yeah, I'm impressed that you know Edmonton.
Yeah.
Most people, they have no idea. And the thing is, I'm not even from those cities. I'm from a small town, kind of an hour outside of Calgary, and so. I mean, if they don't know Calgary, I'm not going to mention the town,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And then how long ago did you move to the Netherlands?
I was checking that before the call. It was 6 years ago. It was 6 years and 1 month almost, because I moved here 6th of January 2020. That was my first day of job, like at work, and first day here. But I was here before. Before that, I was also here like for seasonal work, in warehouses or stuff, So I was in the country before, but like officially moving day was 6th of January 2020.
Wow. Yeah. So almost exactly 6 years full
No,
time living.
no.
Uh, you said that originally you wanted to go to Germany. That's why you started like learning German and stuff like that. How did you
Yeah.
end up going to the Netherlands? You overshot Germany. You missed it.
Kind of. Well, the thing was that I was super close to Germany, like location wise, because it's like from my hometown to Berlin, 3 hours by train. Like to cross the border, like even less. So, and also I have family living in Hamburg in Germany, so I was always like kind of, my mom's cousin lives there, so I was always like, hey, so like when I finish high school, wink, wink, can you help me move there? And like the plan was to do that, and I was there for a couple of months, I was there, but then things happened, and I had to go back to Poland, and I stayed in Poland for quite some time. But I always had this like urge to leave, not necessarily the country, because I moved also from places, from my hometown to different places in Poland. But I always had the urge to like literally leave my hometown, like I just didn't want, like I didn't feel that this is my place to be. Now I miss it like there's like I have never thought that I will ever miss my hometown. And then in 2019, end of 2019, I had this great idea that I want to move to Spain. That was my idea for life. I was like, let me just move to Barcelona or Madrid, or any big cities on the seaside, because of the sun, and just to have a nice life. And I was also like, Spanish is so easy, so I can just move there and it's gonna be all good. And before that, I came to the Netherlands to work in a warehouse to kind of earn some money, and apply for some jobs in Spain. And I applied for a job in Barcelona, and like, well, the company that I work at shall not be named, so I will just not name it. Uh, and they called me, and we were just talking with the recruiter, and she asked me like, hey, where are you located at the moment? And I said, oh yeah, I'm in the Netherlands. I wasn't far from Amsterdam. It was like, I don't know, 50 kilometers away from Amsterdam. And she said to me like, oh, we have a job opening in Amsterdam, would you like to get an interview? Would you like to apply? And I was like, eh, why not? I mean, I can try, So yeah, I did apply. I got the job, and that's pretty much the story, So I was like literally forgot about the Spain the moment I got the job, and then also I was talking to some people, and they were like, oh yeah, like the weather is not so great here, but like the pay and the life quality is much better than in Spain. So like at the end, I think it was the right decision too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've been there 6 years, there's obviously
Yeah,
something that you like.
yeah.
I mean, to what degree were you looking for a job, and to what degree were you looking for a new country to live in?
To be honest with you, I like the Spain idea in general was like I now from the perspective, I don't think I really think it through. I was just like, let me go places and see what happens. And then when the job opening happened here in Amsterdam, I was also like, I mean, Amsterdam is cute, like wouldn't I want to live here, and I guess it was more on the side of living like somewhere else, rather than in my own country or in my hometown, than to look specifically for like It was just, I think it was just like wanting to be somewhere else, rather than anything else. Yeah,
You were looking for a change.
pretty much. Yeah.
Do you know exactly what you were looking for? Like what attracted you to other countries?
Um, well, at the time, Poland wasn't really like I don't want to call it a bad place to be because it's still it's my country. I have a lot of feelings. Like I still feel like passionate about where I come from, but it wasn't really a place where you could freely like live and be yourself. And as a gay man, I just didn't want to have this. I wanted to have some more freedom, and I wanted people in a country or city where I live to be more open to different kinds of people, And Poland at the time wasn't really. Now it has changed through the years that I've been here. It has changed a lot, but yeah, at the time I just felt like I was trapped in a place where like I didn't really feel I belonged, So yeah,
Poland does have a kind of conservative image internationally. I mean, I've never
yeah,
been there, but from what I see on the news, it seems like a pretty traditional type of place.
that's
You're
true.
saying that that's changing. Is it becoming more progressive there now?
I mean, the big cities were always kind of progressive, You always have people that are more on the conservative side than the big cities. Um, But when I was there last year with two of my friends, I took them to Warsaw and to Krakow, to the most popular towns. And I remember that when I was leaving the country, they were just not nice, Like I don't know how to explain that. They were just less friendly than they are right now. And when we went to Warsaw last year, I was so surprised because like first of all, everyone spoke English, which never was the case. So I was also happy to see that the country, like it felt more open than from what I remembered, and from how I felt. And um but this applies only to the big cities, I would say. Like I don't want to generalize, and I don't want to say that all the people in small towns in Poland are conservative and just seeing the one traditional way, but the general sentiment is traditional, and there are some things that shock the people still, like, and they are not taking things easy, as in like if you're slightly different, or if you're slightly not fitting the picture that they have, like it can be really hard to live there, in a sense of it can just look, obviously it's not impossible, and also I have a lot of beautiful memories from living in Poland, but it can, at times it can be just like challenging, to be
Sure.
there. Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I like, we were talking about Alberta, Edmonton, and Calgary.
Yeah.
Alberta is one of the most conservative provinces in all of Canada,
Oh,
and
really? I
that's where
didn't know that.
yeah, it's just consistently voting conservative, like basically forever. And that's where I grew up. That's the environment that I grew up in, and I grew up in a small town where sometimes beliefs can be a little bit more extreme. It kind of becomes an echo chamber when you don't have as much influence from the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
And when I say small town, I mean 5,000 people. So like very small.
Yeah.
And so yeah, very religious, very conservative, and yeah, it can be hard to be in an environment that doesn't represent your values as well. And especially as an adult now, I live in Vancouver, which is a much more progressive place. And when I go back to Alberta to visit my family and stuff, I really, really notice it. Like it's kind of a slap in the face sometimes, where it feels like people are living in the past. And yeah, it can be challenging to be in that environment, even if it's where you're from, right? Because
Yeah.
as we get older, we change, but sometimes our hometown or our home country doesn't change as fast as we do, right? And so
Exactly.
I totally get that. And did you find that kind of freedom that you were looking for in the Netherlands?
I did. Yes. It was really liberating, I would say, to come here and just see, like, there's a lot of things that Dutch people just don't care about, like, or people here in general, not only the Dutch, but people living here, that they just don't care about. It's more in the sense of like the mentality is more like, well, you do you, While, in Poland, especially in small towns, things are not like that. Like like everyone kind of like, especially in small communities, like if you live in a neighborhood, even in my hometown, like for example, when my parents live, like I know all the neighbors, they all know me, and they are like, you know, I was told many times by the neighbors of my parents that, oh, like they know when I go home from the, when I meet my friends at the bar and I go back like 4 in the morning, like they know that, and then they will talk to my parents, or even like sometimes I remember once my parents' neighbor, like she's super lovely, and I know her since I remember, but she once told me on one of the times that I came to visit my parents, she was like, "Oh, I'm happy that you came because finally we will have something to talk about because something's gonna happen here on the street." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, you always go back home. You always, you sometimes you get like a bit tipsy, and we just see that, And I'm like, okay, it was such a weird comment to hear, but I was like, I mean, if that's what you live off, like just go for it. And here in the Netherlands, like it just never happens, like obviously people can notice that, like if you have a party and it's like, like middle of the week, and your neighbors obviously can get annoyed with the noises and everything, but I don't really know my neighbors, like I don't really know what they do, and they also don't really get into my face, let's say, in this sense, so it's just different. And I loved it at the beginning, and I still like, obviously after some time I also got used to it in the way, but I loved it at the beginning that no one really cared how I look, where I go, what I do, so it was just so much different than what
Hmm.
I was used to.
Yeah, I mean, when you have people kind of breathing down your neck and watching every move that you make, I mean, that is, kind of a restraint, kind of what's the word, like a controlled feeling where you
Yeah.
can't move, you're under a microscope. I guess like the flip side of that though is that there can also be some positives when people are really involved in your life, because on the positive end of that, it can represent community. you
Yeah.
know maybe they're not criticizing you, but they're supporting you. And so sometimes you see that divide between countries of like how individualistic they are versus collectivism, like collectivist. How invested are other people in your success or your failures or in your life in general? Something I've heard about the Netherlands specifically is that people can be a little bit, to themselves, and like a little, like, I mean, like you're describing, but sometimes people will perceive that in a negative way of like, well, no one cares about me either. I don't know my neighbors, and I think that's a bad thing. Where in this country, I do know my neighbors, and it's a warm, fuzzy feeling of, being cared for. So
Yeah.
like, what do you think of that? Like, what are the pros and cons, I guess, of both systems?
I mean, the thing is that indeed, like I also can see the negative side of it, Like I when I moved here, it really felt good to like don't have anyone in my face, But like like I agree with the people who say it can be also negative. Like it's not as negative for me personally, but I know what they mean, in the sense that like literally you just live to yourself, and you are on your own, you don't really talk to your neighbors. This bothers me a bit, but I think it's Amsterdam, and it's like the generation, like the millennials mostly, like this bothers me a bit in the sense that I when I enter my building where I live, and I see people, I always say hi to them, because this is what I was taught since I was like little, that you always have to greet your neighbors, just say hi, you don't have to talk to them, just say hi, and like move on with your lives. And I see people like going to the same elevator I do, and I say hi to them, and they just don't reply. They just completely ignore me. And this,
Mm.
I'm always like, what does it cost you to say hi back? Like this is just like such a small, thing to do, just a small gesture, just to acknowledge someone who actually said something to you. Not all of them do that, but majority of the younger people, I would say, do that. Unless we are in the same elevator and they are leaving, they would say like, like bye, because they kind of are forced to, because the space is so small and like you're literally in one another's face. So then they would actually do that. But in general, like they don't really, like, you don't feel, as you said also before, there's not the sense of community is like loosen up, I guess, in the sense, so this I also notice, and like it doesn't bother me to like just to a certain extent, like if you don't say hi to me like this, I'm bothered, but like,
But other than that, it's okay. I mean, it depends where you're coming from as well, right? Like what cultures you're comparing, because it really is a sliding scale. Like some countries are super collectivist and open and wanting to talk to strangers and make small talk at the grocery store. And then some cultures are like really, you stay to yourself, I stay to myself, we don't talk to each other. And so I don't know exactly where the Netherlands fits in that. And I don't know where Poland fits in that either. I mean, like, it's something that you've noticed in the Netherlands, but like how open would you say like Polish people are generally?
oh well, this is like the community side, like as in your neighbors and like family, versus like the services that you receive here. It's so like, because in Poland the community, like, your neighbors kind of, especially in small towns, and the big ones, I also believe it's similar to here, to Amsterdam. You don't really, like in cities like Warsaw and Krakow, I also believe that you don't really connect with your neighbors. In my hometown, with my parents' neighbors, and I know that like with my friends and stuff, like they also have those, like they know their neighbors more, um with the services that you like, when you, because you mentioned the store, and like I just want to give you some comparison in Poland versus here. So if you go to the store here and like you don't really have a small talk, I don't think neither Polish or Dutch culture is, we were not built on small talk. But here at least, if you go to the store and like like you're checking out, and the cashier will say always like, hey, hi, bye, have a nice day, have a nice weekend, have a nice life, whatever the timing is. In Poland, I, like this was it always this always shocks me whenever I go there, because in Poland, if you go to the grocery store, first of all, like you don't talk. You just say
At all.
hi. You just say hi because this is polite, and then the cashier
Mm,
is like, "Cash your card," and then you just say whatever you want to pay with, and that's that. Bye,
mm.
thank you. No smile, no have a nice day. No nothing. Unless in certain like stores, like if it's a chain of stores, they have some sort of procedures that they have to ask about certain things. So like there's a small grocery store chain in Poland, and they have to always ask you if you have the app from the store to collect points. So this is like, it can easily be the only additional question that they will ask you. So, and I also noticed that when I was in Warsaw, that it was a bit different, because I felt like people were a bit more open in this sense also. But in my hometown, every time I go, like it's literally like it's the Polish smile. I don't know if you heard of the concept of Polish smile, but it's literally this. And that's that, like you just
Uh-huh.
like
A
don't
bit
really,
stoic.
yeah. Pretty much. And also sometimes
Mm.
you also feel sometimes, depending on the store, but like I had it multiple times that I was feeling that the cashier actually was like annoyed that I get there, in Poland. I was just like that they were annoyed that they had to actually
Uh,
do the work, because they were talking to a
mm.
to the colleague, and now they have to like do stuff, so
It's an
yeah.
inconvenience that you're there
Yeah, pretty much.
buying things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, it sounds like Poland is a little bit more open in some ways and a little bit more kind of, I don't know, stoic in others.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how it is in every country, right? It depends on the context, on how open you want to be. I mean, like Canadians, I think are, somewhat perceived as, friendly, sometimes superficial people internationally. We're chatty and small talk and hey, how are you? And blah, 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 saying things that we don't really mean. But we're also a little bit more, socially conservative when it comes to like maybe being on the bus. We're not like super loud talking,
Hmm.
listening to music on the bus either, so you can have a little bit of both. I mean, that's why it's a sliding scale, I guess. And so, Yeah, it's always interesting to see where you kind of fit in the world too, because you need to go to another country before you realize how your country really is. Like, oh, I didn't realize that talking to people at the grocery store was a thing that, or in my case, I didn't realize that talking at the grocery store was a thing that people didn't do. When I went to Germany, I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they were like, "What do you want?"
Yeah. It's also like I remember that once I was in Poland and I was just like we went to a supermarket with my cousin because this is also something I miss in the Netherlands. Like we have in Poland, we have the huge supermarkets. Like I don't think they are as big as the ones that you have in Canada or the ones in US. Like we don't have Walmarts or Targets
Costco.
or Costco. We don't have them, but we also have huge supermarkets in Poland. And in the Netherlands, like because the country is quite small here, so they use the space. They are actually quite good with using their space. They are so good with repurposing and using like the spots to the fullest. In Poland, we have more freedom in this sense, and we also after the communism we went through like harsh capitalism, like in really like a short amount of time. So we were building like malls, supermarkets, and all of that. So like I miss that. But when I went with my cousin to the supermarket, and he doesn't really like going with me because I always, but like I'm so always so obsessed, with like going from like one shelf to another just to see what they have. Um, and I said to the cashier at the end, I said like, "Hey, have a nice day," and she looked at me like. My cousin was like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was then after thinking about it, and I was like, indeed, like when you get out of the environment that you like know so well, and you go somewhere else when things are different, and then you go back, it's just like it just becomes a different reality, I guess.
Absolutely. You notice things that you didn't notice before. You've
Yeah,
changed as a person. I mean, in
yeah.
6 years living in the Netherlands, you have changed, and that's a lot of time. To what degree do you feel like you've become Dutch?
Oh, I mean. I don't think I became more Amsterdamer, I would say, because Amsterdam, it's the really international city. So I guess um, this is I become a lot of an Amsterdamer rather than Dutch. I also like with the Dutchness, let's call it. Like I still learn a lot about the culture. I still try to respect what they have here and just also get to know it much more. What I learned, what I also noticed from myself that like because Dutch people can be super direct. They can just like there's no sugarcoating stuff. So this I feel that I also acquired through the years here that like for them, I think they always, from what I heard from the Dutch people that I met, they always say that it's if like they are efficient, in the sense that like they don't waste time on sugar coating and like on those small talks and stuff. So I also, but Polish can also be similar to in this aspect, but I feel like Polish can sugarcoat more to the like people they have close in their circles. So like this can be, so with this I feel that I acquired that, and I'm always like whenever I have to say something to my parents or my friends or anyone else, I'm always like, okay, this is this, and I don't go with like, oh, like I was thinking on this and that. Like I'm always like, no, this is what's happening. So that's uh that's the main thing I would say I see with myself that I acquired from living here.
And I've heard that so many times that Dutch people are super direct and like to the point and no sugarcoating and all of the stuff that you're saying. But I mean, like, what could you do that would offend a Dutch person? Like, if you can just say whatever you want and just like say it how you want to say it, and that doesn't bother them, are there things that they are more sensitive about, or are they just like, super tough people in that
I
way?
think I think in general they are quite tough people. Like I also feel like they can easily offend you if you're coming from someone else, from somewhere else. They didn't just don't see it this way, because it's so normal for them. To be honest with you, it's hard to say what would offend them. I would have to think about it. There are like they can be sensitive about certain things, that there's that like they have certain traditions that they want to like hold on to, so if you question that, I think this would be like something that they could be offended about. But like, they, for example, I maybe you heard that they also have like, whenever there's a birthday, they sit like in a circle, on the chairs, and like they congratulate like everyone, even if it's your birthday, like like the parents, like everyone, and if you would question this, they would be like, yeah, but this is what we do, why would you question that, so
Mm.
they would be really protective about their culture in this sense, I would say. Yeah.
Cultures are so contextual and they're so deep, and like I think that it's there, we have a reflex as humans to make things simple, and so we go, I just want to describe Polish culture like that, or Dutch culture like that,
Yeah.
or Canadian culture like that, and it's always more nuanced. And I've gotten myself into trouble, for example, with my Filipino friends. I have a lot of exposure to Filipino culture, and I've really noticed that they would say things that Canadians wouldn't say, like in a more direct way. Like they would comment on your appearance, maybe, or they might ask you about your personal life, like, your relationships or how much money you make at your job. And those are things that sometimes Canadians would avoid as kind of taboo topics. And so I had the assumption that like, oh, with Filipino people, I can just say whatever I want. So that I would start doing that. I would start, saying this and saying that and being very direct. And then I noticed that there were also limits to that, where people are like, hey, Jared, calm down,
Yeah.
man. Like, relax. And I was like, oh, I thought I could just say whatever I wanted. But, of course, there's nuance to it. And then, I also noticed situations where, especially if there's conflict, sometimes Filipinos are a little more evasive. They don't want to talk about the problem. And so then that went against my theory that everything was kind of an open book situation, So then I went, oh, okay, there's levels to this. This is okay, but this isn't okay, right? And I'm sure that if I was self-reflective, I could see that in Canadian culture as well. Like, okay, this is okay, but this one isn't okay, right? And so I guess that's why I was asking about Dutch people, like, they can't be okay with everything, right? They need to have, I'm sure they have limits, and so maybe
No,
protecting their
obviously, yes.
traditions is one of those.
Yeah. I think that like humans generally, and each culture have limits. I never try to like, like I never try to, I never dare to cross any lines in this sense. But I think you can tell, like you can obviously be direct with them, and you can tell them bluntly, like, hey, I don't like this, I think this is not what we should do. They often can also tell you like, well, this is what you're saying is stupid, for example. And I was like, what do you mean, like, why would you say that, but like the other way around, I also think that there are definitely, like, you cannot just say anything you want, obviously, like, this it's similar to what you said, that like there is this limit to what you can say. And I feel like with their culture, with their traditions, they are really like holding on to it, and they wouldn't allow you to talk bad about it.
I met this Dutch guy here in Vancouver last week. He was walking on the street, this older gentleman, and as I walked by, he like started talking to me, and he was like talking about the weather or something. It was kind of a chilly day, and he said, "Oh, is it cold enough for you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, like it's really cold today. Hey, there's ice on the ground and stuff." And this is like my Canadian small talk, right? We love talking about the weather.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, it's January. It's always cold in January, and it will always be cold in January." And I was like, okay, fair enough. And then I said, well, let's make this a little bit more positive. I was like, well, the spring is coming soon. Are you excited for the spring? And he goes, why would I be excited for something with Mother Nature? And I went, well, it's nice, right? The weather changes. Isn't that a positive thing? And he goes, but why? Why would I possibly be excited about that? And I was like, okay, yeah, good chat. that was fun. But yeah.
Literally, this is the Dutch experience, that the most Dutch experience that you could get. And also sometimes the way they speak, it's like they are so surprised that you would say such a thing, like with the January, they're like, yeah, but in January it's always cold. What do you mean? Like they are just like, surprised that you would even but this is also a bit of contradiction in theirs, because they would say such a thing to you, but they are such a complainers about anything, um, especially the winter, because here, like, I'm pretty sure that, like, in Canada, you have different approach to snow, for example, because snow is, I believe, is still present to you. Like,
Hmm.
you have it winter. Like, I don't know if every winter, because I have never been in Canada, but from what I heard, like, it can be harsh with the winter there. Here, the winter can also be harsh because of the winds. The winds can, like, change everything. But we had, I don't know where was it, like 2 weeks ago, we had like 3 days of snow. We have 3 centimeters, not even three. I think it was 2 centimeters of snow, and the country, like, literally stops in a way. The trains were not going. The highways were, like, all on ice. The public transport, like, paralyzed. Some schools were closed. So this is something that I'm always like, okay. I mean, in Poland we also have snow, like, not, like, it's not extreme, but, like, we can easily have, like, a couple of centimeters of snow, and the lives just go on, like.
Hmm.
But here,
They're
yeah,
not used to it. Yeah.
not that they aren't prepared for that at all.
Uh-huh. It's kind of similar here in Vancouver because Vancouver has like the most mild winter in pretty much all of Canada and a lot less snow. Mostly rain, not as much snow. But where I'm from in Alberta and in most places in Canada, honestly, lots of snow. All for 7 months of the year, tons of snow, cold weather, ice. People are used to it. It's got to be pretty cold for you to have a snow day at school. Like it's got to be like minus 40 for kids not to
Yeah,
go to school.
yeah.
And here in Vancouver, yeah, if there's this much snow on the ground, everything just like shuts down and people are driving their cars into other
Oh,
cars and
really? Well,
buses are getting canceled and yeah. Because they don't have the equipment to clear the snow off in
yeah,
the same way either, right? And so,
yeah.
yeah, they don't do it super well. But out of the 6 years that you've been in the Netherlands, how much has been in Amsterdam?
6 years. I
All of
mean,
it.
yeah. Before I moved here in 2020, I was also in, like, small towns here and there, for seasonal work. But, like, since I moved, I was in Amsterdam. I never moved anywhere else.
Some people will say that Amsterdam doesn't really represent the country very
No,
well
not
because
at
it's
all.
so different. Yeah.
No.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you've visited small towns, right? You've had some comparison.
I've To be honest, through the years here, I feel like I visited most of the towns here. I have been. It's also a small country, It's not the biggest, so it's easy to travel through it. But Amsterdam definitely isn't a representation of the country, I wouldn't say. But I guess it's because Amsterdam is really, really international. It's also Dutch in a way, and they're like true Dutch Amsterdammers from here and certain parts. And you can also feel it when you walk through the streets, like when you leave the touristic part and you just go other places, you can also see and feel that this city is indeed here, in the Netherlands, it's Dutch. But I feel the issue with a lot of capitals is that they become really international and, like, in most cases touristic, that they became more of a, like, I read somewhere that someone was calling Rome in Italy a theme park, and I was like, well, actually, that's kind of, like, makes sense in the way, that Amsterdam also is really, really crowded with tourists. Like, it's something that all the people living here complain about most of the times. But in comparison to other cities, I feel like people in smaller towns in the country here, they are still really, really welcoming in this sense. They are really nice, and they will, besides the bluntness and directness, they will still be nice to you. But they will be more, first of all, they, like, in small towns, they would rarely want you to speak English to them. They would always be like, because in Amsterdam, even if you try speaking Dutch, the issue most of the times is that people are just switching to English because they are like, I cannot be bothered. Like, if they notice that you don't speak Dutch well, they will be like, well, learn first and then talk to me, kind of way.
Practice on your own time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And in small towns, they would rather, like, say, oh yeah, I don't speak English, or my English is so bad, let's try speaking Dutch. So it's like sometimes it made me feel when I was going to smaller cities, I was like, oh, actually, this is the real country, this is the where the regular like people live, and in the sense that like I kind of compared that to my own hometown, like I was like, obviously, if like a tourist came to my hometown, like they would struggle with speaking English to people, because they wouldn't be as comfortable. Even if they would speak English, they wouldn't be as comfortable to speak English. And the same is here, that people are, I don't know how to put that in words, but it's the feeling is just different, it becomes more real the moment you go like even little outside of Amsterdam. Even if you go to Rotterdam, for example, I feel Rotterdam, which is also a big city here, and Rotterdam feels more like a big city than Amsterdam always for me. Like whenever I want to feel like the big city vibe, I always go to Rotterdam, and there's always like this kind of clash between Amsterdam and Rotterdam because they are, yeah, I mean, they a lot of people here also says that Amsterdammers are really arrogant, that they are, from what I heard from the Dutch people, and some of them, like whenever I had a chance to speak with people from the Netherlands that are not from Amsterdam, like some people even said to me like, this is not, it doesn't even feel like Netherlands. So I don't know. I guess it's a mixture of like being super international here and having much more tourists than any other place, and kind of, I don't know. I lost the train of thought now.
No, but I hear you. Like most international cities, especially big international cities, kind of are similar in a certain way, right? You get kind of a mix of different people together, and it doesn't, it might have some things from the host country, but it becomes its own thing, which I don't think is a negative thing. Like I think international cities are really awesome, but they're not necessarily unique. Like if you went to whatever, Toronto or Amsterdam, there would probably be a lot of similarities there, just because it's just a mix of people, and when people live together from different countries, they need to find common ground, right? Like for example, I don't know if you've talked to anyone who studied at an international school abroad. They usually have a very unusual accent, because they've had teachers from Australia and Britain and Canada and the US. And so they kind of have this conglomeration of different dialects that become their own dialect. And so when you talk to them, it's hard to tell where they're from, like originally. And I think when you go to a big international city, sometimes it's hard to tell what country it's in, because you're like, this is just its own thing. It's become something else. And there's beauty in that. There really is. But maybe when you go to those small towns, it's like a reminder of like, oh yeah, like I'm in a different country here.
It is, yeah, indeed. I agree with you fully. I feel like those cities like Amsterdam are just like a little bubble, that you kind of, you live in the country, obviously, but you're also like, sometimes it doesn't feel like you live in the country, especially unless, because in Amsterdam also you have neighborhoods that are like more authentic, I would say, and like more Dutch in this context, in this sense, that they feel more, that it feels more that you're actually like, yeah, like it reminds you, like, okay, like this is the Netherlands, like people here are Dutch, and I also should try to speak the language, like putting aside the fact that they will switch to English, but I should try to, like blend in, like integrate a bit. And this is how I felt also when I was traveling a bit outside the city, that like it felt just more real, I would say, and even, like you could actually see just just how it is, because in Amsterdam, also in big cities, like life goes faster, and when you go to a small town and all of a sudden you see like, just the people that are going to do groceries, or like go to a local cafe, and you also go to this local cafe, and they are like kind of surprised that you're here, because you're kind of outside from here, and they're like wondering who you are, so it always brings me this like homey kind of feeling that I remember from Poland, or I romanticize also Poland now that I live here,
Some nostalgia.
yeah, but this is how it's, what the difference would be, it's like more homey. Let's put it like that.
And what about the language? You said that you speak a little bit of Dutch, and that it's hard to practice in Amsterdam because people switch to English. I mean, how has that process been for you in general over the last 6 years of trying to learn Dutch?
Well, at the beginning, when I moved here, I wasn't really like the first couple of months, I was like, I don't like I don't think I will ever want to speak this language because when you go somewhere and you're surrounded with the language, as in even though people a lot speak like different languages here, the Dutch is still present, like in the public transport, everything is in Dutch, like wherever you go, like the Dutch was like literally in my face, which obviously is natural because this is the Netherlands, so obviously this is the language they speak here. But I just couldn't, I didn't like it, I was just like, okay, like I don't know what to think about Dutch, and then after a while, when I kind of got used to it, I was like, okay, actually maybe it's time, and here there's a lot of programs also for people who come here to from the city, that you can get like a language course, and the city pays for it. You have to attend, you have to pass it, but the city can pay for it. So I did that, and I was really like keen to kind of learn. I was like at the beginning. And also, it was the time that we were all deep in lockdown. Nothing was happening. So I was like, let me also like use this time and learn Dutch. And then the classes started, and it became real and I was like, okay. I mean, was I really that like excited about this language? I don't know, but I went through the course and I passed it and everything, and it was like the A2 level, I think, when I passed it. So I already had kind of an idea of the language, and it was 5 years ago, So since then, I was just trying to use it as much as I can, and just to learn kind of on my own. I still have the books that they gave me when I was studying it with the course, so I also still use them. And um I mean, I have a lot of friends who are internationals here, like I have Polish friends, Spanish, Swedish, like from all over the place. um and we all kind of go with the same struggle, that we want to learn the language because, like I live here 6 years. I have friends that live here for 12, like, and they still couldn't really fully learn the language. So the fact that the city is so international, it's a blessing when you come here. But if you wanna then stay and kind of integrate more, it can be a bit of a curse because, as I said before, it's hard. It's really hard to practice this language, So like the best way for me to practice is to go to a small town, Like I even like on my Instagram, I even ask like people, like I ask my followers, like, hey guys, what did you do? Like I wanna kind of step up my game, And I had like 20 messages saying like move out of Amsterdam. I was like, yeah, but the language can be cute, and sometimes I'm kind of intrigued by how things are, but I don't know. Like I want to put more effort into it. This was one of my resolutions, So let's see. I hope by the end of this year I will be not A2, but like at least B0. Like not to put myself into B1, but at least more. But I also understand more. So, like even when when I get the government letters, I'm not like fully lost as I was before, Like I can also, especially from the tax office, like I can just be like, okay, do I have to pay? And you just see the words and I'm like, yeah, well, I have to pay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can develop kind of a passive understanding of a language just by being in the environment. I mean, you described Amsterdam as being a bubble, an international bubble. And the fact that so many Dutch people, like even people who are, born and raised in the Netherlands, also speak English super well. It sounds like once you're in that bubble, it's almost like hard to get out of it because people don't want to practice with you and whatever. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing bubble where it's like, people might say, oh yeah, no one speaks Dutch, but there's also very few opportunities to learn Dutch unless you're like super self-motivated to do it on your own and take private lessons and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, how much do you use Dutch on your in a day to day basis? Like, I know that you're, seeing the, the signs or whatever in Dutch, and like when you're on the bus, you said it's all in Dutch. But
Yeah.
in terms of using the language, how much do you use it?
Well, just, mostly to order something, I would order in Dutch, or um, if someone asks me a question, that's because it happens also in public, like that someone asks me like, hey, do you know if this bus already came or something, then I would reply in Dutch, or at least I would try to reply in Dutch. I always, whenever like I leave any institution, I always say like, have a nice evening, have a nice, day, life, whatever. Always in Dutch, but those are like kind of micro conversations, And what bothers me most of the times is that even when someone asks me a question and I know what they said, like I just cannot bring the Dutch words into my head, like I reply in Dutch with my like broken vocabulary, but then they usually switch to English, and I like then I can fully reply in English, but like I don't know, like I always try to have those interactions in Dutch, just to at least have it. And I watch a lot of Dutch television recently. I
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it seems like the Dutch people are happy with that arrangement, though. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're okay to speak English, and I would imagine that even in small towns, young people probably speak English, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, they all speak English. It's not that, like, it's always, I met, because a friend of mine, her husband is Dutch, she's Swedish, and I met friends of her husband, and they were, most of them were Dutch, and I remember there was this one guy, and he was like, oh, I don't really speak English, and I was like, well, okay, like, don't worry, like, we will get through the conversation, and then he said like, I don't really speak English, and then you could like he was speaking like there's no tomorrow, like one
Right.
sentence after another, and I was like, what do you mean you don't speak English, so I guess they also, like, what I noticed from my experience is that they also kind of underestimate their English skills, they also speak it better than they claim, especially
They're
outside
humble.
Amsterdam. Yeah, yeah, they are humble indeed.
I mean, like if they're okay with it, because like sometimes people will criticize, like, oh well, someone's moved to this country but they don't speak the local language, and I don't know. Sometimes I think that's fair. Sometimes I think it's not fair to have those expectations for people. It kind of depends on the situation. But like if the Dutch people are okay with it, and as a traveler, as a tourist going there for a weekend, obviously they're okay with it. How does it feel as a full-time resident? Like, do you feel like not having as many opportunities to speak Dutch and everyone switching to English gets in the way of you integrating into Dutch culture? Or is it like a convenient thing? Like, oh, it's okay.
I mean, obviously, it is kind of convenient, because it doesn't really put me into the position that I have to put any effort into it, But I feel bad sometimes, when I actually have to switch to English, because I would want to, be more integrated, and I would want to speak the language more. And I know that I also see the fault in myself, because I could put much more effort than I actually do, Um, but with the Dutch people, they are mostly okay with that. They sometimes you can get like an annoyed person, saying like, why don't you speak Dutch, and being like uh, surprised that like people come here, and especially if you live here like for a longer period of time, So sometimes when I say to a Dutch person that I live here 6 years, they are like truly genuinely shocked that I don't speak the language. But I always try to also tell them like I know it's on me, but it's also kind of on you guys, because you also don't really allow us to speak the
Mm.
language, So it also differs. I think they are generally okay, but it also can happen that they are not. I was just to give you an example, like if you go to a store, obviously, and it's with younger people, they seem to have less of an issue with you not speaking Dutch. Even if they start the conversation in Dutch, they just would speak to English and just move on with their day, I was in a hospital and I had to register as a patient in the hospital, and I got into the desk of this lady, and she was speaking Dutch to me, and I understood everything that she said, but I couldn't fully reply in Dutch, and she got so annoyed. She was really like pissed, and I literally told her like, and I told her in Dutch, I was like, if you don't want to talk to me, I can go to your colleague. And she was like, no, 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 we're gonna talk. And then she kind of forced me to speak Dutch, you know. So I don't know. It's so I think some people also wait, let me just reframe it because coming back to Germany for a moment, because when I was in Germany here and there, and I also had German in school for years, you know, so I guess it's also an advantage for me. But when I was in Germany and I tried to say anything in English, they would be like, I don't know. And not only, you know, in small towns, but also in big cities, they would. I know it's also has changed with time, but when I was there, I remember my experience was that even in big cities, they would be like, either we speak German or we don't really have a conversation, you know. So it kind of also forced me to learn the language to speak it, you know. So like I don't want to blame Dutch people for not speaking the language with the foreigners, you know. But I guess it would be a bit easier if there was the opportunity to practice more, you know. But
So like in a hypothetical world, would you prefer to have to speak Dutch?
definitely,
Like if we could
yeah,
snap
yeah,
our fingers and no one in the Netherlands spoke English, would you do it?
for sure. I would like
Yeah.
if I because I guess with some people, you know, like, and I know that I'm one of those people. Like in some things, I just have to be forced to do certain things, you know, rather than, you know, because if I stay in my comfort zone, you know, and everyone switches to English, you know, and speaks English to me, then I'm like, okay, cool, you know, like I'm comfortable here, you know. But if this would be opposite, you know, and everyone would start speaking Dutch to me, then obviously I know that I would be literally forced, and I would speak more. But again, I don't wanna put any blame on the Dutch people because, like, if there's anyone to blame, I would say I am the one to blame because I also should have put more effort into learning the language, you know. So
I mean, people, like humans in general, look for the path of least resistance, right? Whatever's easier is what people
yeah,
do. And especially when it comes to communication. And so when people switch languages like that, like they're just trying to get through the conversation. Like they're like, okay, you're ordering this coffee or whatever. Let's just do it in whatever language is easier. And for a lot of people, it probably is English in Amsterdam, right? That's the easiest one. So I mean, it totally makes sense. And I think that you know, where let's say, I don't know if people are, you know, criticized in Amsterdam for not speaking Dutch or not. You said some people get annoyed, some people are okay with it. But in my case, as an English native speaker, people are very vocal about how we're bad at learning languages. And it's true, you know, like Canadians, English speaking Canadians, I should specify, you know, and Americans and Brits and everyone, we don't typically learn foreign languages, right? We go to other countries and we expect them to speak English. And it's not fair, and we should learn other languages. But the world is set up so much for English, and it's our language. And so you go to an airport and everything is in English. It doesn't matter what country you're in the world, you can find English at an airport. And so we're also in a similar boat where it would be nice for us to learn languages and get to know other cultures. But unless you have a specific interest in that, the path of least resistance is just to speak English.
pretty much, yeah.
And you see that with other countries as well. Like, okay, you know, you're from whatever, like Germany. Okay, so is a German person super multilingual? If they don't have interest in languages, the only language that they're going to learn other than German is English. And then once
Obviously,
they can
yes.
speak English, they'll use English with everyone. It's like, you know, and so other people do that as well, the same way that English speakers
Yeah,
do. We just have one less language because we started with English, if that makes sense, you know.
yeah,
And
of
again, I mean,
course.
I'm like, I understand your stance too, like, and I agree. It's not the world's fault that, you know, Canadians aren't good at learning foreign languages, but it is a contributing factor, right? That we can get by. And I mean, I happen to be interested in languages, and so I like learning them, and I've learned different languages, but I did that because I have a passion for it, not because I
Yeah,
needed to. I never needed to, you
yeah,
know?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I suppose when I went to Colombia, maybe I needed to because less people speak English in Colombia. But yeah, other than that, most places you can get by.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I agree with you. And also, like what you said, like we always look for the easy way, like
Yeah,
why also, like this is how the brain is wired, I guess. Like, why would you bother for the hard way if you can get something the easy way, like,
sure.
yeah.
People are
So
lazy, really.
people are really lazy, and it also like it's. I don't think it's only the English speaking nations. As you said, Americans, Canadians, Brits, Australians. Like I feel like it's the same with French. They also don't really want to, like they do have this reputation of not wanting to speak English, and wanting to speak their language. With Germans, I also when I still lived in Poland and I worked at the hotel, they also were coming to Poland and they were assuming that everyone would understand them, and they were just they weren't even asking if you're speaking German. They were just speaking German to you. So I guess it's, as you said, it's just a human nature that we were just go and choose the easy thing.
This has been a really fun conversation. Thanks for doing it. I appreciate it.
For me as well, I was really nervous before. I was just like, what if I say something stupid, or like I don't know. I was just doubting myself, but it was really nice. You have a really good way to carry a conversation, and I feel like you also listen a lot and just I don't know. It just felt really nice,
Mm.
So thank you for that.
Well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. I found you on Instagram originally. That's how I kind of got a hold of you. I think I found your email on your account there. Let people know how they can find you online if they want to check out your content as well.
Well, they mostly like they do what you did, because I have the link with the email. But I get a lot of DMs, and my handle is wannabe Amsterdammer on Instagram, So if you any of your listeners want to check how is my life in Amsterdam, then definitely just go to Instagram. I also have TikTok account, but I feel like I'm more millennial, so like Instagram is my my go-to social media, So wanna be Amsterdammer, wherever you put it, you will
Okay.
find it.
Yeah, I'll put it
Yeah.
a link in the description, and then people can check it out that way and watch your videos. Because you make lots of cool content about your life in Amsterdam and kind of your experience there, being someone from a different country. So super
Yeah.
interesting, and people should definitely check it out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, thanks again for the call, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much. If you need any call, like any talk in the future about anything specific here, like just hit me up. I'm more than happy
Sure, maybe we
to
can do
help you
another one
out.
in the future about
Yeah.
the Netherlands. We can pick a topic and go into it a little bit deeper. That'd be fun. Okay, thanks again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.